Sometimes life moves so fast that we forget to slow down and appreciate the people who hold our hearts together. And tonight, I want to speak from a place that's honest and real. This isn't a speech for everyone, it's for my woman, the one whose presence feels like calm in a chaotic world, the one who chooses to stay even when life gets heavy. I'm not here to impress you with big words or dramatic lines. I'm here to remind you that love doesn't need perfection to be powerful. It just needs truth. And the truth is, everything I'm about to say comes from a man who is learning, growing, and grateful because of you. So, this is for you, only you, and everything I say from this moment on is something my woman needs to hear. I want to speak from a place that isn't polished or rehearsed, but from somewhere softer, somewhere real. There are words I carry inside me that I don't say enough. Maybe because life keeps moving, maybe because I convince myself that actions should be enough. But sometimes words matter too, especially when they come from the heart. And tonight, everything I'm about to say is meant for one person. My woman. Only she needs to hear this. Not because I have secrets, not because I'm trying to impress anyone, but because the truth of what I feel belongs to her, and it has always belonged to her. There are moments when I look at her, and I'm not sure she knows what she does to my world. She doesn't try to be extraordinary, she doesn't try to be perfect, she just exists. And somehow that existence rearranges something in me. It's like her presence brings light into places I didn't even realize were dim. I think about how quietly she changes things, my mood, my thoughts, the way I breathe, the way I hold myself. She doesn't even notice the power she has. She thinks she's just living her life. But I'm here feeling like she's reshaping mine in ways I can't fully explain. And maybe that's why I want to speak. Because love, real love, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper. Sometimes it's a gentle push. Sometimes it's the soft hand you don't want to let go of. The voice that steadies you when your own thoughts start to feel like a storm. She has been that for me, not by force, not by demand, but simply by being who she is. And I want her to know that. I want her to understand that her value to me isn't tied to her beauty or her achievements or her strength, though she holds all those things. It's tied to the way my soul recognizes hers. It's tied to the way her energy feels like home. There were times in my life when I didn't think I deserved something gentle, when I convinced myself that life was meant to be survived, not shared. I walked through days with my guard up, telling myself that letting someone close would only lead to more loss, more disappointment, more reasons to stay quiet. Then she appeared, not dramatically, not with fireworks, but with a sincerity that disarmed me. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't ask me to be more than I was. She just opened her heart a little at a time. And somehow that made me brave enough to open mine too. And I want her to hear this because love isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about staying. Sometimes it's about seeing someone's darkness and choosing to hold their hand through it anyway. She has done that for me in ways she might not even realize. She has offered patience when my thoughts were distant. She has offered softness when my world felt sharp. She has offered understanding when I struggled to understand myself. Those things matter. Those things are the foundation of a love that doesn't fade when life becomes heavy. When I say only my woman needs to hear this, it's because this truth is sacred to me. It's something intimate, something carved from the deepest parts of who I am. I'm not standing here to make the world listen. I'm standing here to let her know that she is seen, deeply seen, that the way she loves is something I cherish, that her flaws don't scare me, that her fears don't push me away, that her past doesn't make her any less worthy of the future we're building. I want her to know she doesn't have to be strong all the time. She doesn't have to pretend, she doesn't have to carry everything alone. I want her to feel that my arms aren't just a place of comfort, they are a promise. Sometimes I think about the quiet moments we share, the ones that don't make it into photographs or stories we tell others, the moments when she's half asleep and her hand finds mine without thinking, when she laughs at something small and her eyes soften, when she looks at me like she's searching for something, and I realize she's not searching for perfection, she's searching for honesty. Those moments are the ones that stay with me. They remind me that love doesn't always need to be loud to be real. It just needs to be true. I want her to know that I love the way she dreams, even the dreams she's scared to say out loud. I love the way she doubts herself sometimes because it reminds me to be gentle with her. I love the way she tries, even on the days she feels tired or worn down. I love the way she hopes, the way she cares, the way she gives pieces of her heart to people she believes in. I love that she doesn't realize how rare she is. I love that she still thinks she's ordinary, when every part of her feels like something I waited my whole life to find. There are things I want her to hear, things that I've carried silently because I didn't want to overwhelm her. But silence can be its own kind of weight, and I don't want her to ever wonder where she stands in my life. She stands at the center. She stands at the place where my fears begin to fade and my courage begins to grow. She stands at the intersection of my past scars and my future hopes. She stands where love feels possible, even for someone like me who has learned to guard it so carefully. I want her to hear that she deserves softness. She deserves love that isn't conditional. She deserves someone who notices the way her voice changes when she's unsure. Someone who listens beneath her words. Someone who stays present. I want to be that for her. I want to be someone who doesn't take her for granted, who doesn't let days pass without showing her she matters. I may not always say it perfectly. I may stumble, I may fall short, but my heart knows who it belongs to. And I want her to know that too. There have been times when I've watched her walk into a room and felt the world slow down. Not because she's trying to be the center of attention, but because there's something in her spirit that pulls me in. She could be quiet. She could be lost in her thoughts. She could be smiling at something small, and I'd still feel that same pull, that sense of gravity she doesn't know she has. And I want her to hear that it's not about the way she looks, though she is beautiful in ways that go far beyond appearance. It's about the energy she carries, the kindness she moves with, the depth in her eyes that tells 1,000 stories at once. I want her to hear that I see her, not just the version of her she shows the world, not just the strength or the confidence or the kindness. I see the parts of her she hides, the worries, the insecurities, the moments when she feels small, the memories she tries to outrun, the fears she can't always name. And none of it makes her less. If anything, it makes her more human, more real, more deserving of a love that doesn't walk away when things get complicated. I want her to know that when she breaks, I don't see weakness. I see someone who's been strong for too long, someone who deserves rest, someone who deserves to be held without explanation. I want her to hear that I'm grateful. Grateful for her patience when I'm lost in my head. Grateful for her warmth when my heart feels cold. Grateful for the way she stays, not because she has to, but because she chooses to. Love is a choice, and every time she chooses me, it reminds me of the man I want to be. Not perfect, not flawless, just real, present, honest. Someone she can trust, not because I say so, but because I show it in the way I love her back. I want her to hear that loving her has changed me, not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but in the subtle ways that matter. In the way I think about the future, in the way I handle my fears, in the way I find peace in her voice, in the way I wake up wanting to be better than I was yesterday. These are things she deserves to know, things I don't want to keep hidden behind silence or hesitation. She deserves clarity, she deserves certainty, she deserves to feel safe in what we have. I want her to hear that she is enough, more than enough. She doesn't need to compete with anyone. She doesn't need to compare herself. She doesn't need to apologize for being emotional, for being sensitive, for feeling deeply. I don't want her to shrink herself. I want her to expand, to grow, to shine, to take up all the space that her heart, her dreams, her spirit deserve. And I want her to know that I will be beside her through that growth, not holding her back, but holding her hand. I want her to hear that when I think about love, I think about her, not because she completes me, I was never incomplete, but because she adds to me. She brings color to the parts of my life that felt faded. She brings warmth to the parts that felt cold. She brings meaning to the days that felt repetitive. She brings hope to the nights that felt heavy. She brings honesty to a world that often feels too loud and too fake. Her love is something that anchors me, not by tying me down, but by giving me a place to return to. Your presence shapes the man I become, and I don't think you fully understand how deeply that truth runs through my life. It's not just about the way you hold my hand or the way your voice softens when you speak to me. It's about the way simply existing near you changes something fundamental in me. I find myself growing in directions I never expected, directions I didn't even know I had the capacity to reach. There's something about the way you move through the world that inspires a quiet kind of transformation in me. A shift that isn't forced or demanded, but invited by the energy you carry. When I look at you, I don't just see beauty, though that beauty is undeniable. I see a mirror that reflects the parts of me I've ignored, avoided, or forgotten. I see the man I want to be looking back at me through your eyes. Not a perfect man, but an honest one. A man who tries. A man who learns. A man who allows himself to feel without apologizing for it. Being with you has made me look inward in ways I never dared before. You make me want to understand. my own heart, because understanding it is the only way I can fully offer it to you. There's something sacred about the way you love. You don't push, you don't demand, you don't control. You simply exist in a way that makes me want to rise. You inspire without trying. You lead without declaring yourself a leader. There's a softness in you that doesn't weaken me. If anything, it challenges me. It asks me quietly if I can be gentle too, if I can be patient, if I can listen to the world the way you do. Your presence holds up a silent question. Am I willing to grow? And the answer is yes, because loving you makes growth feel natural instead of frightening. Sometimes I watch the way you treat people with kindness, even when they don't deserve it. I watch the way you stay open-hearted despite everything life has thrown at you. I watch the way you carry hope, not because the world has always been good to you, but because you refuse to let the world take the goodness out of you. That resilience shapes me, it teaches me, it reminds me that strength isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes, strength is just choosing to stay soft in a world that keeps trying to harden you. Your presence teaches me what it means to be patient. Before you, I carried a restlessness inside me, a sense that I always needed to rush, to fix, to prove, to protect myself by moving faster than my emotions could catch up. But with you, time stretches differently. Moments feel fuller, conversations feel deeper, silence feels safe instead of uncomfortable. You make me want to slow down, not because you ask me to, but because slowing down means I get to feel everything with you. And I never want to miss the details that make loving you so real. You shape the man I become when you believe in me even on days I don't believe in myself. There's a sincerity in your faith that pulls me back from the edges of doubt. When you look at me as if you can see a future where I'm stronger, wiser, calmer, more grounded, it makes me want to step into that version of myself. Not to impress you, but because you help me see that he already exists. He just needed someone who saw him before he appeared. You see me that way. You see my potential without dismissing my flaws. You see my heart without ignoring its scars. And somehow your acceptance makes me want to heal, to try, to evolve. There are times when your presence feels like the quiet voice in my mind reminding me to breathe. I didn't know how often I forgot to do that until you entered my life. I didn't realize how frequently I carried tension in my chest, or how often I braced myself for things that weren't even happening. You bring stillness to me, not by taking away the storms, but by standing with me in the center of them. When you're near, I feel grounded in a way I've never felt before, and grounding is something I didn't know I needed until I felt it with you. You shape the man I become when you share your dreams with me, when you speak about the things you want, the things you fear, the things you hope for. It opens a space inside me where vulnerability becomes a bridge instead of a wound. Listening to you talk about your life reminds me that love isn't just about holding someone. It's about walking beside them as they move toward the things that matter to them. You make me want to build a life where your dreams have room to breathe, where your happiness has a home, where your heart feels protected. There's a particular way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. A softness, a quiet curiosity, a kind of searching that feels like you're trying to understand, not just who I am, but who I'm becoming. And in those moments, I'm reminded that love isn't static. It's not a frozen version of two people trying to hold on to one moment. Love is movement. Love is growth. Love is evolution. And I feel myself evolving in the presence of your gaze, your touch, your words, your silence. Everything about you calls me into a deeper version of myself. Your presence shapes me when you laugh. I don't think you realize how healing your laughter is, how it cuts through the weight I carry, how it brings warmth into rooms I thought would stay cold forever. Your joy reminds me that life isn't meant to be endured, it's meant to be lived. When you laugh, I feel something in me open, something that had been locked away by years of quiet fears and unspoken worries. You bring lightness without dismissing the heaviness. You bring brightness without blinding the shadows. It's a balance I didn't know love could have. You shape the man I become when you trust me. Trust is not a small thing. It's not a gift that can be taken lightly. And every time you place your trust in my hands, every time you let me see the parts of you that are fragile or complicated, you remind me of the responsibility of love. Not responsibility in a burdensome way, but in a sacred way. You make me want to be someone worthy of that trust, someone who holds it gently, someone who treats your heart with the reverence it deserves. Sometimes I think about the version of me before you came into my life, a man who was guarded, unsure, holding on to old pain like armor. And then I think about who I am when I'm with you. I laugh more. I speak more honestly. I allow myself to feel without pulling away. I look at the future with more hope than hesitation. I see possibilities instead of limitations. That shift didn't come from pressure, it came from presence. Your presence, you shape the man I become in the way you listen. You listen not just to respond, but to understand. You listen with your eyes, with your attention, with your heart. When I speak to you, I never feel dismissed or minimized. You make space for my thoughts, even the messy ones. You make room for my fears, even the ones I struggle to express. And that kind of listening teaches me how to listen to you, how to listen to myself, how to listen to the world with more intention and compassion. There are days when I am not my best, days when stress gets the better of me, when I feel distant or heavy, when I retreat into my thoughts. And on those days, you shape me by the way you stay patient. You don't push me. You don't demand explanations. You simply let me come back at my own pace. And somehow that gentleness pulls me back faster than pressure ever could. You teach me that love doesn't have to be loud to be strong. It can be steady. It can be calm. It can be the quiet reassurance that someone is there even when you're struggling to show up for yourself. Your presence shapes me when you're vulnerable with me. When you share your pain or your fears or insecurities, it doesn't make me see you as weaker. It makes me see you as braver. And witnessing your vulnerability reminds me that strength isn't about pretending nothing hurts. It's about having the courage to let someone in. Your bravery inspires my own. Your openness invites mine. And in that shared vulnerability, I find a version of myself that is more honest, more connected, more human. You shape the man I become when you love me without conditions. You don't ask me to be perfect. You don't need me to have all the answers. You don't require me to hide my flaws. You accept me fully, and that acceptance feels like a foundation I can build on. When someone sees you clearer, why and still stays, it changes the way you see yourself. It makes you want to be worthy of that love, not out of fear of losing it, but out of gratitude for receiving it. Your presence shapes me in ways I'm still discovering, in the way you touch my arm with tenderness, in the way your eyes soften when I speak about things that matter, in the way you gently challenge me when I'm limiting myself, in the way you encourage me to rest when I push too hard, in the way you remind me that I'm human, and being human means allowing myself to feel everything, not just the strengths I'm proud of, but the weaknesses I'm working through. I find myself growing because of you, not changing who I am, but becoming more of who I can be. Becoming more patient, more grounded, more thoughtful, more open. You don't transform me by force, you transform me by love. And love has a way of refining a person without ever demanding that they become someone else. You don't want a different version of me, you want a true version of me. And that truth is something I discover more deeply each time I see myself through your eyes.